to be here and have this panel and discussion with several of our candidates. So I'll just do a brief discussion and then sit down and or brief introduction. And then you three are welcome to come up. Today we have Doug Jones here, and he's running for the U.S. Senate. Against Luther Strange. And,
or somebody.
Most of you know Mr. Jones is a former U.S. attorney and is best known for the successful prosecution of those responsible for killing the 4 little girls in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. So we're just thrilled that he is here with us today. Today, Kline, who is running for the 6th Congressional District, is here with us as well. And he is known for and Mr. Kline is well known for the Free the Hops movement. I'm sure many of you And last but not least, of course, is Felicia Stewart. And she's a candidate for the 46th District Alabama House seat, currently occupied by David Faulkner.
Yay!
And she has her MBA from Southern Methodist?
Yes,
Is that right? Okay. Southern Methodist College, and currently resides in Mountain. So we're so happy to have her, and you three can come on up, and they're going to introduce themselves, and then we're just going to have some Q&A. Welcome,
There's an extra seat up here. Or who's got an extra seat next to them? Is this extra? Yeah, there's one here. One here. Oh, see.
Thanks, first. As they said, I am Felicia Stewart. Probably for the next 12 months, also known as the opener for Kline. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're starting this thing super early. Hey, John. Hello. So we have 18 months to do this, and we have a lot of common constituents. So you're probably going to see the two of us together a lot, and I'm happy about that. I have certainly opened for lesser individuals, so I'm leveraging that. Just my 2-minute spiel. I'm a native Alabamian. That in and of itself presents a hefty dichotomy of emotion. I love this place. I love these people. I love the wonderful, robust stories from which I come. But I am disappointed where we are. I've spent some time away, and I've recently come back with my family. And while there are wonderful things that I've seen that have happened, Railroad Park and lots of building things, and I've engaged with different nonprofits and service organizations recently who are doing great things for the population of our city and our region. The underpinnings of what I left and the history that is unresolved remains unchanged. And my wife and I are celebrating our 16th anniversary this year. Was that congratulations for the wife or the 16th?
Both.
Fair question. 6-year-old twin daughters that are wrapping up their kindergarten year at Mount Work Elementary, and we want to raise them in the Alabama that I love. And I want to be an active part of making that dream a possibility, and that means that I expect more. I expect more from the legislators that we elect. I expect them to represent all of us equally, not just people in certain zip codes or with certain types of jobs or alphabets in front or after their names. I want to be part of a meaningful change that involves ethical, transparent, engaged leadership. And over the next 18 months, you'll learn a lot more about me, and I'll give you my bio, and there aren't 2 other esteemed colleagues to give their little presentation. But you'll learn that many times in my life I have been presented with challenges, and my instinct is to roll up my sleeves and to do the work, and that's why I'm running for this office in House District 46. So thank you for having me, H.I.V.E.
Opener or not, I'm excited. I'm
just met Felicia, and I think she's fantastic, and I think we have not, everybody here knows that the state of the Alabama Democratic Party is lacking. So it's going to take a new effort from some new faces, new energy, and I think that we can work together and get a lot done. In the 6th Congressional District, from 2000 to 2010, there was not a Democrat on the ballot. And if you don't have a name on the ballot, then you're not in the game and there's no chance of winning. Then over the last 3 cycles, some folks have put their name out there, but they haven't had the resources and they haven't brought in the kind of infrastructure that wins campaigns. So I have a history with Read the Hops of organizing, of dealing with legislators to make change and understand the political process. So I know the front-facing grassroots aspects of it. I also understand the behind-the-scenes, the way the lobbyists work, the way all that kind of comes together, for better or for worse. And the last 3 election cycles, where there was actually somebody on the ballot, the Republican candidate in this district won 75% to 25%, which is very near the reddest district in the country. But we haven't been playing the right game. We haven't done it right. We haven't had the resources. We haven't had the organization. I'm going to have the organization. We're going to have a lot of energized folks like you all participating. Gary Palmer is an extremist.
Yes.
He is not he beat out DeMarco in that primary in 2014. And I know a lot of folks know DeMarco, and they like him, and he's a good guy. And he was kind of middle of the road. But Gary Palmer is the one that won out, and he is far right, libertarian. He would abolish Social Security and Medicare if he could. And the people of this district don't want that. They want responsive government that actually is taking care of people, that's not wasteful, all that kind of stuff. And he doesn't represent that. He's way, way, way over here. So folks like you in this room, we get together and we start knocking on doors and making phone calls. We can communicate that message to the people of this district. This health care bill is a disaster. I pray it does not become law. The Senate's going to have their own version, and then maybe even worse. If it does become law, my heart goes out to everyone who will lose insurance. The flip side of that is going to make it way easier to win this district because it's going to be such a disaster. There's going to be so much pain and suffering. This is a generational moment. Donald Trump is in the White House. I've had many conversations with lots of folks who are lifelong Republicans. They don't like the guy. They know he's an idiot. And anyone who knows anything about Gary Palmer knows that he is far right. So it just takes communicating the message. It takes making those phone calls, knocking on those doors, developing those relationships. We can get that message out. It will be received. And we can win this district. I believe it, or I wouldn't be standing here tonight. I need y'all's help. And let's have a conversation. I wish Doug was going to be on that same ballot, but he's up first. But if he gets in there and people see how great he is, then that makes it easier for the rest of us. So I'm thrilled that he's going to get in there, and let's see what he does. Thank you.
I have to admit that I'm here in part because when I first read Megan's email, I thought she said Darren was bringing free beer. Be that as it may. It is great to be here. It is great to be with her, with him. It is great to be, more importantly, with you, because I know there are people in this room, a lot of friends I see, that have been engaged. But I will guarantee you, if I ask for a show of hands, there's people here that have not been engaged with them. That all of a sudden, November of this year, realized, by God, I need to do something.
Amen.
Yeah, I will tell you candidly, that also hit my wife, Louise, who's back there, and I also, the night of the election. We've been raising kids too. Mine are now, out with 2 grandbabies, and then I got one in grad school and one at Alabama. And so we've been doing a lot of that, and we have been kind of on the periphery. But all of a sudden, when it hit home that the United States of America was becoming Alabama, we said, we got to do something. We got to get engaged. This is after a year when we hit the corruption trifecta in Alabama. And so from that point on, we started, trying to look to figure out how to get engaged. How's the best way to get engaged? I'm going to tell you something seriously. The day after the inauguration, those 2 days, well, first of all, I went deer hunting the day of the inauguration because I really wanted, I won't tell you what I wanted to shoot. In any event, the next day was the Women's March across the world, not just in Birmingham and D.C. And I had a new client coming in. And my office is right on Lynn Park. And Louise went down. She asked me, where's it starting? I said, well, I think they're going to be at Kelly Ingram Park, the logical place. But my office is on Lynn Park. And so I'm sitting there meeting with this client. And the next thing I hear, I thought there'd be a lot of people. But I went and looked out at Park Place when I heard people from an inside office, heard people singing and chanting. And I went to my office and I looked down 19th Street and all I could see were people, men and women. And they were going down 6th Avenue North. And I thought, well, they must have met at Kelly Ingram Park. So I go out to the front of the office, my partner's office, and look. And there was nobody in Kelly Ingram Park, but the street was filled with people. And then I go behind and I see how thousands of people had come up 4th Avenue North, turned on 20th Street and come down. And at that point, I knew there was such energy. And I knew that energy and how to capture that energy. Look, we don't have to talk about a ton of issues. We're going to have some dialogue. Let me just put it very succinctly. If I had been a United States Senator a year ago, Betsy DeVos would not be the Secretary of Education. As important as it can be. Our state has been embarrassed too long. And it has started happening before Bentley. Between Hubbard and folks who were in charge, we have had no leadership in the state of Alabama for some time. We tried it years ago, but unfortunately, our leadership has been lacking. Our leadership now consists of folks in the House of Representatives and the state Senate going behind closed doors, deciding on how they're going to vote, coming out, give 3 minutes of debate, and it's done. And now we have to debate things like whether or not insurance companies should be required to pay for autistic children's therapy. Come on. Give me a break. That's a no-brainer. And I mentioned the health care bill. We got a long way to go on health care. That has been demonized so much. And this whole thing with the Republican House of Representatives was nothing more than an opportunity to have a beer party and a roast party. It is not going to be a bill that survives. No one knows what it's going to look like, but it is not going to look like the bill that passed the House of Representatives. Having said that, Governor Ivey gave us a real opportunity. She showed us a way to keep our energy going this year through 2018. This election on December the 12th, which, by the way, will also be my 25th anniversary day. So now you know what kind of present I want for my anniversary. And Louise is back there going, oh my God, oh no. But we have such an opportunity. She has given us the chance to carry this energy that's in this room and across the state into December and right up to the qualifying time. One of the things that I'm hoping this race does, and make no mistake, we're going to win this race.
Amen.
We're going to flip this. Flip this seat, but the fact is we're going to carry that energy over into the spring of 2018 when qualifying starts. So we've got great candidates. They're going to start coming out of the woodwork because we're going to give them a reason to believe. The old Rod Stewart song, we're going to give them a reason to believe in what we believe in and what we strongly believe in, because I am not going to run away from the Democratic Party. I'm not going to run away from what made this party great, which made this country great. We're going to pull it back. we're going to pull it back, and we're going to talk about Planned Parenthood, and we're going to talk about all the issues that are important to you, and I'm not going to be Republican-like. We're going to let the Republicans fight it out, duke it out. Come September 26th, we'll figure out who we're going to run against, and on December the 12th, we're going to celebrate a new era in Alabama. We were talking in the back about orders and things like that. The one thing we all agreed on with a group like this, we want to hear from you. Our campaigns are just beginning, you know, and we know there's a lot of energy, but we want to hear from folks everywhere we go. What is it that's important to you? What are the things that are going to not just motivate you, but that's going to motivate you to go up and down the block, to get out the vote for Doug Jones or any one of the three of us at the appropriate time. So you're here tonight because you want to get involved. We're giving you a chance. Okay? It's going to take a little bit to get off, but that's why we wanted to do this almost like a panel and let some of y'all talk and tell us what you're concerned about and why. So I don't know if somebody wants to moderate or what.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For all of you maybe.
Okay?
I'm really concerned that the Democratic Party has moved away from caring about the working class, the laboring people, who have really made this state go and this country go. We've ignored them. We've gone to big campaign financing. How are you going to finance your campaigns?
Well, let me say that first, because I think if I can finance my campaign, theirs is going to be a lot easier. Okay? And I believe if you look at what's going on in the House election over in Georgia, that's another thing that Governor Ivey has given us. We're the only game in town. We're going to be the only election in the entire country, and it's for Jeff Sessions' seat. The word goes out that Alabama wants to replace the Klan sympathizer with the Klan fighter. We're going to get money from around it. Okay, I really believe that. We've put together a real good team. We're using some folks that Joel Ostroff's using over in Georgia. I think this is going to attract a lot of national money. I think for the first time we've got a chance to put an Alabama race in national play. I don't know how much and when, and we're not playing to that just yet. Okay, but I think at the right time, you're going to see that coming in, both online in the traditional ways. We're going to have fundraisers. I got people calling all the time. I think we're going to have a lot more money than any Democratic senators had in a while. And having said that, you can start by going to Doug Jones for Senate right now and contributing right there. So I didn't want to speak for them, but I do believe this. I do believe this race has the opportunity to raise money for Democrats across that in 2018 in a big way.
Yeah, I think that has been the central concern as I have gotten going in this process is, you can hear about it for years and years that people say money is ruining our political system and big donors and big business and the PACs. You hear that and it makes sense, but until you announce a congressional campaign and you look at what a congressional campaign costs and you start trying to raise money for a congressional campaign, that's all academic. Now it's real. I'm getting in the middle of it and I'm seeing how hard it is. Like on Facebook, it's really, really easy to get likes and shares on Facebook. It's really hard to get somebody to click donate on Facebook. Those are two separate categories. So right now, I'm doing everything I can to be grassroots fundraising. I can already tell you that's, unless something really big changes, that's not going to carry me over the finish line. So I'm just going to have to talk to people who raise money for congressional campaigns, find out what those sources are, and I will make decisions based on my personal convictions. I'm not going to accept money that's tied to a vote that is counter to my convictions.
And no dark.
Yeah, it's nothing that I have a very, very strong conscience, and I'm willing to take money from people who finance Democratic congressional campaigns, and they may have a lot of money, but it all depends on what the strings are. So it's all about what your conscience tells you and not taking money that's going to violate your conscience, and I'm not going to do it. So I'm a long way from getting to $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million, and who knows what all is involved in that. But I'm going to set my own personal lines, and I'm not going to cross those lines.
Come on.
Yeah, well, that sounded like a very national question, but it started out with sort of working class white voters, and then we
Stand up.
mailed it into campaign finance and dark
Felicia.
money. So,
Stand up, we're recording this. Can't see, all we can do is hear you.
I got it, Bill. They didn't understand.
Okay.
So
Banner's
that
gonna
feels like
finish
a clear national question to me, but given the opportunity, I'll say a couple things about that. Specifically targeting the white working class voter that you're talking about. I have two opinions on that on a grander scale than the District 46 that I'm running for. And I'm standing here so I can say things. One is that's most of my family. My family's from South Alabama. I was raised in Mobile, Baldwin County area, and my family has since moved to Dothan and Wiregrass area. So the whole swath of that is where I came from, and my family does those things. So my two opinions on the white working class voter who we have allegedly not listened to as a party, I say allegedly tongue-in-cheek. In some ways I believe that we have not. But in some ways, I believe that the people they believe are listening to them are lying to them. There's not going to be a resurgence of coal country or cotton farming or any other thing that was the thing that can no longer be the thing because our environment doesn't support it, technology doesn't support it, has far surpassed it. You know, we're not losing jobs in the places they say we're losing jobs. We're losing jobs because of automation and technology and a changing workforce and the fact that we've stripped and mined everything to the extent that it can no longer be done. So listening to them saying, I hear you and we're going to do that again is not listening to them. And that's not affecting any change that we need as a county or as a district or as a state or as a nation. And my follow-up to that would be a little bit longer story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So recently I was at a similar forum and I was listening to our state party leader, and without having any vitriol in my commentary, this is literally what happened. So she says, in front of a group of supportive people, part of the problem we're having is we're not listening to all of these people. And from where I come from in this tiny town in Alabama, I go home to visit and I run into, let's say his name is Fred, who is an older, white, straight gentleman who has had a particular type of job his entire life. And he runs into said lady at the corner store, and he's a lifelong old school Democrat, labor Democrat, workers' man Democrat. And he says to her, how's it been going, la la la? And she goes, oh, I can't believe all these things are happening. And he says, I had to vote for Trump. We've got to do something. And she, completely flummoxed, says, I cannot believe that, Fred. And Fred says, it's just too hard. The competition for my jobs from all these immigrants, everybody wants to pay less to get the jobs. I'm being outbid left and right. I can't maintain an income and take care of my family. And my 30-year Democrat loyalty just went by the wayside. Like so many stories that we heard on CNN or Fox, if you brave that territory. And she says, oh, that hurt. That just resonated with me so much, how this is what's happened and we've ignored this thing. Well, let me tell you, if Fred was stereotypically in the story Juan or Kareem, okay, just go with me here, we would have said, that's competition. Take advantage of the economies of scale and partner with a buddy or pick out an adjacent market. You're a roofer. Get with a plumber and y'all work together and use the same employees. Do the job, bid lower. That's how capitalism works. We're a capitalist country, right? Grow your business. And if the competition is too steep, this maybe wasn't made for you. Or maybe your time has come, like hot and cold, and sorry. That's what we tell Juans and Kareems. Figure it out. Right? But we don't tell Fred that. We tell Fred, we didn't listen to you. And you abandoned us. And so now we've got to really focus on you, even though none of those ideas will carry us forward as a society. And that's what I feel about listening to the working class village.
So I've got kind of a follow-up to that. So we are kind of in a place of crisis in the country with industry, with people who them and their fathers before them have all been coal miners, have all picked cotton, have all done these things. And they are disenfranchised because they are being left behind. But do you feel that we should be putting money and resources into retraining these people to get out there to be educated enough to do new jobs, to go into the new field, into the new market, rather than just leaving them behind to have no job, no employment, dead towns, dead communities, and to be angry and disenfranchised?
I do. I mean, that's
Right. I mean, and that's exactly.
it's easier to talk about than to do. It costs money,
Of course.
and you also have, there's also just the institutional block that people have without doing it. Nobody wants to go back to school when they're 55, 60 years old. They've done it all their life. Their families have done it all their life. It's hard, I think, to get folks to accept it. But I think that's one of the failings that we've had. We haven't had leaders who have worked 5 steps ahead. We haven't had leaders who look 2 steps.
No, because they don't want to
Okay.
put money into it.
They don't want to put money into it. They want to demagogue the issues. And they want to use that division for their own political way. That's been the biggest problem I think we've had in this state, where people want to use the divisions in the state to further divide us and to use it all, thank you, for their own political power. And candidly, I use some Democrats in that too, okay? I'm talking about political leadership up in there. Like, I think we have to try to figure out a way to do that. We have to convince people, and it's a good thing. You know, I'm a lawyer. They talk about practicing law. And that's true. Every day is a practice for the next case. And we have to get people looking at things in a different way. And we really do, I think, have to start thinking ahead. No one would have dreamed technologically where we would be. If somebody told me 15 years ago that I'd be carrying around a computer that was like 1,000 times more powerful, carrying around in my pocket, than the one I bought when I first went and started practicing law, it cost me too much.
And the one that took us to the moon.
And the one that took us to the moon. That's right. You know, so I think we have to do, the devil's in the details of that, but I'll tell you this, you don't hear Betsy DeVos and those people talking about stuff like that. All you want them talking about are vouchers and trying to destroy public schools and public education and trying to get people, instead of trying to get people back in the educational field. So,
Well, to actually put people back to work.
Right. And Parker did a great study. One of the things that has been overlooked in the state is the direct connection between the education in the state and our unemployment rate. And if we can spend more dollars on educating people as we spend giving giveaways to a lot of folks, we'd be a hell of a lot better.
What's that study?
Parker, Public Affairs Research Council of Alabama.
I don't have the solution, but I know what the problem is, and I don't, one of my priorities is to find a way to solve the problem that we are careening headfirst into automation, killing jobs like you can't even imagine. Everything. I mean, right now, we're all celebrating the fact that Uber and Lyft are giving people this new option to have the service economy, 2 different kinds of jobs. Well, Uber and Lyft are going to be 100% automated within 10 to 15 years. And a whole lot of other jobs are too. That is going to accelerate. And so we have to find a way to create different kinds of jobs and retrain people who are doing different jobs. And as Doug pointed out, someone's 50-something years old and they've been doing one thing their whole life. Retraining them for something completely different may be impractical. It's a very, very difficult problem, but I know that we need to invest in finding the solution and not just put our fingers and our hands over our eyes and just see no evil, hear no evil. We have to figure it out. So I believe that will take public investment in research and development to find the solution. So that's on my radar, whereas I know that's not on Gary Palmer's radar.
No, of course
Not even close. So that's one of the things that I'm really focused on.
I have some breaking news. I gotta just tell you this. My granddaughter caught her first fish. She named it Buddy, so I just somebody just.
Can you stand up when you ask the questions? Because he's live streaming it. So if you could stand when you're asking your questions.
Kind of complicated question. You can tell us what we can do as citizens, and then what you will do when you get in your positions to protect the rest of our nation against the evil that is Sessions, and what he is doing to with the mandatory minimums. This is going to destroy life. I'm serious. What can I do right now at my level as a citizen? What can I do to help this? What can we do to protect specifically people of color who are going to go to jail, and he's going to make money off of it? And then what will you guys do when you get into it?
Can I take this from this one?
You're
Is in my wheelhouse. I never thought I would say this, but I agree with Senator Rand Paul. How weird. Rand Paul did a fascinating op-ed piece about this issue. For the last 5 to 7 years, I've been working with the Brennan Center for Justice on criminal justice reform issues. First as a federal prosecutor, looking at 20%. More recently, as one of the founding members of a group called Law Enforcement Leaders to Reduce Crime and Incarceration. And everything that we are talking about and have been talking about is about as far opposite of what Jeff Sessions. For those of you who missed this, in the midst of all the James Comey fiasco last week, if that was not bad enough, Sessions sent around a memo to all the prosecutors. There's about 5,000 assistant U.S. attorneys around the country, asking them and telling them that the old guidelines are now gone, that they are to charge defendants with the maximum possible charge, carrying the maximum possible sentence, including the maximum mandatory minimum. He is ignoring all of the data that you just talked about. 20 years worth of work. And if anybody doesn't think that our Attorney General is not a throwback to 30 or 40 years ago on war on drugs, read that memo. He is about to change the dynamic in such a bad way, and at the same time authorizing more private prisons, which is important. This country incarcerates, we have about 5% of the world's population. We have 25% of the world's prisoners. Now figure that out. And most of those are people of color. About a third of all African American males in this country are under some sort of supervision, whether they're in prison, parole, or probation. That is unconscionable. That is unconscionable. And no one understands the collateral damage that causes to families. And it causes it for decades. Because when those people do get released from prison, they can't get jobs. And unfortunately, we've got some folks that have been stepping up to ban the box, and y'all know what I'm talking about here. And that's a good step. Rand Paul, a Republican from Kentucky, even talked about the fact that all these people are being disenfranchised. Ted Cruz, if you remember last year in North Carolina, actually made the statement, we do not want to give felons the right to vote because they're Democrats, which is his code for saying they are black. It's a racist way of doing things. It is a throwback to a bygone era that did not work. You can count on the fact that as one vote in the United States Senate, I will stand there, God, I can't believe I'm saying it, with Rand Paul, okay, on that issue. Because it is so important, and I hopefully there'll be a lot to do that. I mean, the bill that he is co-sponsoring with Senator Leahy is a really good bill, or it's a really good start. And I think we can do that. I don't think you'll see Luther Strange or any of the Republicans running for the Senate that will support that bill. They just don't get it, because they would rather really important people and demagogue these issues. I've said for a long time that the one area that suffers most in an election is the criminal justice system. And it has suffered long enough. And, you know, I'll tell you, I've been on both sides. I get a lot of credit for being a prosecutor, but I've been a defense lawyer for a while, too. You know, I've done a lot of different kind of cases, and I've seen the damage that when people make mistakes and are not given a second chance, when they are just locked up in a warehouse, and it's really bad in the state, but I think we've got the dynamics to change that. We've just got to have the political will and courage to follow through.
Well, I'm going to follow up, Jim. I'm sorry, y'all can clap for me. What can we do, though, at a state level? Can we go through things about, things that are illegal but that are silly, that are people are getting thrown in jail for? Like, I know, I can't remember where it was Philadelphia, for spitting, where it was almost 100% of the people that were going to jail for this were black people. I mean, is that something that we can do as citizens? Is that something that we need to do at the House, state level?
I think the first level is at the state level. Look.
Let me stand and say that I have no idea what the state laws are on spitting.
Yes.
I will start with that. But for those that are in my district who have curiosity about what my positions would be on this subject matter, criminal justice reform, I am not in support of these minor laws for even marijuana possession that are obviously for personal use. Whatever your opinion on that, we have a prison overcrowding problem that is apparent. And it's also apparent by research, not anecdotal evidence, by actual research, and even more dramatically, terrific documentaries like 13th and amazing books like Just Mercy by Brian Stevens. If you read that book, you really should have even a greater awareness of your position or change position, if the case may be. But these low-level crimes that put people in prison for 2, 4, 6, 8 years, or if worse, they've done that 2 or 3 times, and it's the mandatory minimum, and you're 21 years old, and suddenly you find yourself in prison for 25 years because you smoked pot. That's unconscionable, to use your term. So I'm in favor of any legislation, and maybe even part, when I get there, of sponsoring and crafting legislation that eliminates those laws. Clearly, the supermajority that we have in the state now is not interested in reducing any of those. That is not the message of a law and order party. It's you mess up and you're punished. Right. And I don't think that allows any room for compassion. I don't think that allows any room for people whose margin of error is not the same that I experienced. And I think we can do better than that. I'm also, just by the way, not in favor of us spending $845 million on new prisons while simultaneously doing nothing to improve education in prison, counseling, access to health care, mental health care, and all of those things. So if we can spend our legislative time and man hours and manpower and mind space on debating whether or not we should have guns on college campuses in the state, we should be able to devote those same resources to figuring out how to make sure that the young men, predominantly, and of course some women that end up in prison at a young age, can be rehabilitated, can be counseled, can be educated, that they come out at 26 or 28 or 34 or, God forbid, 40, and have their whole life still ahead of them and have a different trajectory. So that would be my position on some of those things.
There's a couple of good advocacy groups, Alabama Appleseed, State Poverty Law Center. They're all on the front lines with that. The ACLU, they're all on the front lines of that, on those very issues. And it's all about the money. If you make it about the money, you can have some success. Pick somebody. You pick somebody.
Hi, I'm a teacher, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately since the science march in particular. But what can any of you do, and this is for all of you or none of you, right here, right now, to start working on combating anti-intellectualism in this country, in this state, too? And I mean, the education system as well. You know, Gary Palmer is so
anti-climate change, anti-science, and we tried to talk with him, we tried to speak with him, and healthcare is an aspect of this, right? I think if we can kind of get our population more educated, we can kind of make some progress here. IT industry, which to me is particularly relevant right now, but we get very much forgotten in between elections because, But, like I said, what can any of you offer in terms of trying to combat anti-intellectualism in this country and in this state?
Yeah, so this is something that, it keeps me up at night, that I worry about. I have good ideas and good policy positions that I'm afraid people won't listen to just because I'm going to have a D next to my name. And so there's this, we all know that there's just been this polarization, this separation of people are taking cues from their side. And so right now, there is a side in politics that thinks scientists are lying to them. So I think it goes down to a very fundamental level of how we are all identifying ourselves. And there's no easy solution. I think that, I know that my goal over the course of this campaign is going to be to find common ground with people who otherwise think we don't have it. That's what I'm going to spend every moment working on for the next 18 months is what do we have in common? What do we share? How can we connect? And if we connect, and you trust me, whoever you are, then we can have a conversation. So it's going to be a very long, slow process, and I'm afraid that it's going to take a lot of people, because people are taking cues from their politicians. What happens is that, it wasn't that long ago that there were lots of Republicans who were willing to support cap and trade. It really wasn't that long ago. But moneyed interests came in, opposed it. Republican leadership was opposed to it. Fox News was opposed to it. And so everybody then rallies around because now that's our position. We are on this side, and our side doesn't believe in man-made climate change. So we have to break down those barriers. We have to develop those relationships. We have to get past the partisanship and polarization. And there's no magic formula. It is going to be a long, slow process. And the more we all reach out and listen, and this is something I'm a very empathetic, sympathetic person. I feel things deeply, and I watch what goes on online, and I'm watching it on both sides. I hate the false equivalency thing. Republicans are doing terrible things that Democrats are not doing. But on both sides, what is happening is that people are really demonizing other people who believe differently. And I see it on both sides. And we cannot demonize. We cannot look at people who voted for someone else and think they're less than human. And I see it happening all the time. So we have to find our shared humanity. We have to find things that we have in common. And I think that over time, as we maybe rebuild some of those relationships that got lost in the polarization, we can deal with some of those issues. It's not easy.
In 2008, our economy came that close to collapsing into what might have been the Second Great Depression. In 1980, we elected the man I thought was the biggest asshole in the world to be the president, but I didn't know Republicans could outdo themselves twice over, so I've lived long enough to see all that. That man, Ronald Reagan, ran and brought into office an economic philosophy that his opponent, George H.I.V.E. Bush, called voodoo economics. Somehow or another, the Republicans have managed to bring our country into this idea about economics, this economic philosophy that has dominated for 40 years now, pretty close to it. With that philosophy has come a very anti-government philosophy. Government's bad. We now have the libertarians are in control of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is in control of our government. And they want to, as Norval, anyway, the guy who wants to shrink government down. Norquist, thank you very much. To the point that he said he can shrink the government down to the point he can strangle the government in a bathtub. These are the people who are running our country. We're paying them to shut down our government, basically, and do nothing else. In 2008, I had hoped with the economic disaster that we had that we would have a debate about economics and say, hey, we need to go in a new direction. One of the things I have a criticism of President Obama about is that he didn't really hold that debate. So here we are, 8 years later, and we still aren't having that debate. And they're not going to have that debate because they're going to cram their economic philosophy down our throats. Do you have any ideas how, if you get elected, we can bring that debate to the American people and perhaps turn this vision around and turn this terrible, terrible notion that there's something wrong with government around? My mother worked for the federal government for 30 years. She was a good, honest, hardworking person, and every time I hear somebody criticizing government and government employees, I'm ready to strangle them in a bathtub. I'm tired of it. We need to, everything that we suffer in this country could be fixed by good government. What can you guys do for us?
Another long haul. But let me tell you something. Every question that's been asked relates right back to that. Whether it's any intellectualism, whether it's talking to white working class folks, it all comes back to where you hit, and that is it's a tough thing to break through those barriers. I'm not an economist. I got a lot to learn about all of that. Okay. I don't disagree with you about what you said about President Obama, but what he inherited was such a disaster. He had, he was a surgeon and had to save a patient before he worried about the rest of the long haul, and he did it. By the way, he did it. And clearly he did it. And, other folks are trying to take credit for that, but that was not the case. We were on the brink, and he was able to do it. I think that there's, when I was in law school, this all goes back to the messaging. It goes back to being able to have that dialogue. One of the things that you saw where I put out my statement, that for years I have been talking about the fact that we need to have dialogues in this country and not monologues. We are have lost that ability. One of the things that I've done as a lawyer is to try to have dialogues with my opposing lawyers, because that's how we resolve it. And I think that that's important. And I can remember going back, even before Reagan was elected, when I was in law school here, and Joe Biden, a young senator from Delaware, came. And he talked about how the Republican Party was losing its sense of economics and the value of government, that they constantly criticized the government. And he talked about a lady, this is a long story, and I apologize, but it's significant, and it stuck with me from that day when I was 24 years old, that the chairman of the Republican Party, or some other prominent female Republican, called him up at home, a United States senator, and said, Joe, there's a dead dog in the front of my house in the street. He said, okay, what do you want me to do? She said, I want you to get somebody to come get it. He said, lady, look, go get a damn Jonathan Winters trash bag, pick the dog up with some gloves, put it in there, and throw it in the trash. The point he was making is that Republican who criticizes government constantly was never making the connection about the services that government performs and her tax dollars until she wants them. And that is, we have lost that, and we are in a serious problem now, because what Donald Trump is trying to do, and I want to talk about that for a second, but what Donald Trump is trying to do now is to try to cut out our clean air and our clean water by destroying the EPA. He's going to put a stranglehold on the Department of Labor so that the people that are getting their arms cut off and and not getting a living wage are going to be in more serious jeopardy. All of those things, but he's going to put a lot of money in defense, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think we're in a new era for defense, and I think it's going to be some new thinking to fight the terrorist activities out there. And one of those is not to kind of like talk to the Russians and the old law. But while they're going to selectively dismantle government, we got to stop that. I worked for the federal government on 3 different occasions. Once as a staffer to U.S. Senator Howell Heflin. Once as an assistant U.S. attorney, and once as a U.S. attorney. Is there a lot of waste in government? Sure there is. There's a lot of waste in every business in which you've got more than 4 people. But we've got to make that connection. We've got to talk to folks to make sure that they understand. In Alabama, I forget the exact figure, but I'll get it, I promise you. You know, for every $1 that we send to the federal government, we get back about $1.50 or more.
I think it's more than that.
It's more than that. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And it's services that we demand. And you're just not going to be able to cut that out. But it goes back, I think, to talking straight to those working class folks who now decided, based on a lot of social issues that they've let a lot of people whip them into a frenzy, that's not important. We can have that dialogue. We can have that dialogue, and if we can just get people to listen. But it's not going to be just up to me as a candidate, these folks as a candidate. It's going to be up to every one of you when somebody says something to you, your friends at church or school, somewhere else, just say, wait a minute, hold on a minute. That's not right. Let's talk about this a little bit. And if we can all do that, then we're gonna all be in a lot better shape. So that's it. Thank you for that question.
I just want to say on that really quick, I think that, just something in here, I think that for a long time we have just not, as people, not had those uncomfortable conversations with our family members over Christmas. We just want to get through Christmas, like just get through it, just get through it. But I think you're absolutely right that we have to start saying in a calm, not strangling way, why are we here? Let's talk about that. And I think that's something that we all have to do.
And I think what you're going to see, even though we are all energized with what's going on in this country, if we don't have positive messages, if all I go out there and do is talk about Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, I'm going to get the crap beat out of me. But if we can have positive messages and educate people about that, then we can make some headway. And I think that's what you're hearing from all of us, the positive message. Now, make no mistake, I got a few things to say about this, but we want to have positive messages all over.
Hate to stop it.
Thank you all.
But we have a couple other speakers we'd like to get up here. So appreciate
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Free beer. Yeah, beer's included, June 3rd. Go to votedannerkline.com and there's a link there and sign up for just come out, come have a party with us, have some beer and
And
wine.
Megan and I will put on our next email, we will put your websites, all of yours, so that we can donate and help and get involved.
Tell me your name.
So I'm going to have Megan introduce, we have a couple more speakers before the group puts us out. The air is on, although I'm sweating still, but the air is on, and hopefully the troops will keep coming here. Thanks so much, guys, for coming. Thank you again to Felicia Banner.
An email and we will put, we got to put our dollars where our votes are, and that's very important. I'm learning that as well, but we will put out something for them so that we make those donations. All right, moving right along, I would like to introduce the fabulous and wonderful Bob Parker and Pat Vandermeer from Greater Birmingham Democrats from Forward, Alabama. Pat works with Ready to Run. They're going to do some information about how we can get involved locally, how we can help these folks out, and start doing things right now, coming up for the election in 2018, and doing things right now for Doug. So I would like to invite Bob and Pat to come up to the front. Welcome, friends.
Tough acts to follow. It's encouraging, isn't it? To see that level of candidate at all levels. I was asked to speak. I understand there have been some questions about the Democratic Party and what ails the Democratic Party. And that's a long, detailed story. I'm going to give you the short version. And it is...
I can do it shorter.
Race is inescapable in Alabama. And in the late 80s, the state party sued itself because the Dixiecrats who ran the Democrats at that time were not giving fair and equal representation to the blacks. And there was a class action lawsuit brought, and it was finally settled. The state party had to sell the building that they owned to make the settlement. And there were some other things. There was the consent decree that came out of there. And the consent decree gave equalization or adjustment powers. You can get elected to the state Democratic Executive Committee, but then the Vice Chair of Minority Affairs has a certain number of at-large seats that he or she, it's always been he, can appoint. And there's always been an electoral advantage for the people who enjoy that part of this, who follow that part of the status quo. There was one other underlying thing here is that there really was no active state party. There was a handful of guys in a smoke-filled room who ran everything. They took the money from the trial lawyers. They took the money. Now, Joe Reed and Paul Hubbard, everybody remember Paul Hubbard died a couple of years ago. Joe Reed led the Black Teachers Union, separate union when all this was going on. So they combined those and made the AEA the powerhouse that we all knew it used to be. What's the first thing the Republicans did when they got in 2010 was wipe that out. They took away the automatic donation portion and began distributing. But for so long, Joe Hubbard and several other people, that was the Democratic Party. They would decide who was going to run. And largely, if you won the Democratic primary, you were going to be the next office holder. And then we shot ourselves in the foot with Braddock and Baxley and just started doing this stuff. And Guy Hunt got elected, if you remember all this series of things. But the Democratic Party didn't change. The power, those guys in that smoke-filled room continued to try to do everything. There was no small donor fundraising. They didn't need that. They got the money from the trial lawyers and from AEA and other people. That is not the fault of the current party leadership. That is what they inherited. Now, personal opinion is that they should be more adaptive and should be moving into the 21st century is what they're trying to do. Candidate Jones and I have talked about this. He's left the room now, but Doug has long counseled, don't speak ill of fellow Democrats. For a long time, that was very difficult for me. I've been involved in Alabama Democratic Reform Caucus for about 5 or 6 years now. That's inside politics. It's a group that is working within the state party to try to bring about change. And it's been banging your head against the wall. I am the SDEC representative for this district, 46.
New people here, explain that.
House District 46, which is where we are, it starts all the way down.
SDEC.
Oh, I'm so sorry, thank you. The State Democratic Executive Committee. It is the body that votes on the proposals from the executive board. And progressives have never had a majority on the SDEC. That's what it's going to take to change the party, everybody. There is Anthony Daniels. Everybody know who Anthony Daniels is? The new House Minority Leader. Very forward-thinking, very energetic fellow. And he is putting together a plan and a unifying concept that, in my opinion, gives the Democratic Party the best chance of being effective and competitive that I've seen since I've been involved in doing this. More will be coming out about that very soon. It's a statewide program. There are, probably not, you shouldn't say, I'm not at liberty, whatever you want to say. There's some powerful groups that are getting involved in this on the national level. Who are doing a 50-state strategy, and Alabama's going to be a beneficiary of that. Doug talked about some of the things he could see with that election, going after session seat, things like that. Everybody who's going to adopt a 50-state strategy will play into will help us, will strengthen us. Now, let's talk a minute about specifics. I don't have enough of these to pass around, but within 10 miles of where we stand, there are probably 7 or 8 different House districts. You go down into rural Alabama, and a House district might encompass 3 or parts of 4, 3 and part of another county. It's all based on population. So, it can be pretty challenging. This, and I want, please pass this around. I'll ask you people up here to make sure these get evenly distributed. This is a list of just a few of the House districts right around this area. And when we talk about getting involved, this is one of the things that you can do. There are 105 House districts in the state of Alabama. Every House district gets to have a female and a male representative on the SDEC. You run on the primary ballot. In this case, that'll be in June. You pay $50 to your county party to get qualified, and then you run on that ballot. And if you're elected, you get to go to the SDEC meeting in Montgomery. And that's where we can finally start making some change. Now, we need to do this in a coordinated fashion. Let me put my glasses on here. Doug Hoffman is a good friend of mine. He's sitting back there in that next third from the back row. Doug is very active in the Shelby County Democratic Party, and he is finding challengers to run against some of these representatives that you'll see in the right-hand column on this page. But the people in the left-hand column are the House districts that are closest to us and a current situation of who is in those House districts. And you'll see that there's, down in 47, there are question marks. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I ran off 50. I'm sorry, I was not prepared. I counted a minute ago. There's 69 people here, so congratulations.
Your cup runneth over.
Yes, right. So
we didn't expect a slap.
You'll see on House District 47, there are question marks by those people. I've been going to every SDEC meeting for 4 or 5 years. I don't know who those people are. Well, so they need to be challenged. They need to be defeated. We've got somebody running in 45. Jason Hall, we have an opening in 45. Jason Hall moved. We have a couple of people down in 48 who were at one time active, and for various reasons they're no longer active. We need people to challenge to run for the SDEC. Down at the bottom, if you want to make sure that you're eligible, that Find My Legislator, and there's a web address. There's a little chart. You can plug in your address and your zip code or whatever, and it'll tell you which House district you're in. Then you can talk to somebody like me or ADRC or something like that, and we can find out what we know about who is in that district. And if they are not progressive, or if they don't go, then we need to challenge them. It costs virtually nothing to run for the SDEC. You pay the $50 to the county chairperson. They put your name on the ballot. You're down at the end of the ballot. I ran here in House 46. I had an opponent. I think I beat my opponent by like 25 votes out of like 400 votes cast. There's just not that many votes cast. So it's basically free. It's networking.
What's the button to do that?
Beg your pardon?
You have to pay $50 by when?
It'll be in qualifying, which hasn't been thoroughly. Yeah, it'll be sometime probably from December to late February, something like that. And then you can run. So we just need to coordinate this. We need to get the right folks down there. We need to get progressive folks down there to Montgomery. And that's how you can begin to affect change within the Democratic Party. Then the other thing down here at the bottom is the email address for the legislature as a whole. Now, How long do I have? I've taken about 7 or 8 minutes. Do I have another couple of minutes? Does anybody have questions? Yeah, well, I guess
I have one question. If you didn't put anything next to their name, I just noticed that in District 46 with, and Faulkner's. Are those people progressive or not?
Well, one of them is me. And Julia. No, it's okay. It's okay.
But Julia.
And Julia is too. Julia was, this is a good example. The person who was initially elected to that seat resigned. And that seat was open. And within the SDEC bylaws, the first order of business after you take the roll and that kind of stuff is to do the perfunctory stuff. You're supposed to elect, you have nominations from the floor for open seats. And that's how Julia was elected. Now, there is a history of this that we have been, the progressives among us have been stymied at many points trying to get those folks nominated. This is politics and it gets ugly sometimes. But that's beginning to change. There's been more cooperation from the powers that be.
What is the resistance from the powers that be to the progressive?
Status quo, they like the status quo. They are comfortable with the status quo. They would rather, personal opinion, they'd rather be, I think it's all that some of them have known. And I think that Dr. Reed is happy as he can be, being the master of a rump, do-nothing political party, and rather than being part of an active, ongoing, progressive organization.
Rather be the captain of the sinking ship instead of the crewman.
I just want to say thank you for these candidates. I know that you guys have had some part in bringing them to us, because I really feel like half of the battle with moderates is bringing people in front of them who are actual happy, successful people who are running because they are caring citizens, not because they want to be part of this backroom nonsense. So I just wanted to say thank you. I will work for these people, and I appreciate that you brought
Pat's going to talk about how to work for them. Thank you, but I think if you're the only person we can claim any sort of credit for is Felicia. I think Doug Jones is a self-starter, and so is me. So we're glad to be in a position to help them. Now, are there any other questions? Please, if you haven't heard or are not familiar with Forward Alabama, I have these. I'll put them in the back. Please get one. We would appreciate if you go to the website and see everything that we're up to and that we're doing. And I think that's it.
Okay. I'll talk about that. Okay, one of the things that we heard today from both Doug and Felicia and Danner, and one of the things with their campaign, that they all have their campaign, one thing in common is they need grassroots campaigning. And what is grassroots campaigning? Grassroots campaigning is person-to-person campaigning and person-to-small group campaigning. And I'm just going to briefly talk about 3 ways your group here can help in doing that kind of grassroots campaign. And the first thing is going to be phone banking. And phone banking is very simple. You call a list, and you call and you have a script. And the goal here is to do a couple things. And first of all, where do you find that list? And this is something that there are lists out there of voter registration lists. And on those lists, you have your name, your phone number, your address, your sex, your race, and you have your voting record. Now, not who you voted for, but it tells you how many times you voted. Are you a voter that just votes in the presidential election? Are you a voter that votes all the time? And so all of this data is on these lists. And some of these groups, a lot of them, will have appended data. They'll have other kinds of information on it. Or they'll have the ability to model with that. And one of the things that Alabama is different is that we have open primaries. And which means when you register to vote, you do not have to say you're a Democrat or declare that you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. And in many ways that's good. But if you're a Democrat and you're trying to find Democrats and you've got this list, you don't know who the Democrats are. So you're at a disadvantage. So one of the things that phone banking does is to help identify the Democrats, help identify the Republicans, because you never want to talk to those people again. You never want to call them. They're over there. And then you're going to identify the independents, people that are sort of persuadable. And so when you start to phone bank, what we usually try to say is you start early, because one of the things about these files is they're in horrible shape. Horrible shape. Bob and I, a couple of years ago, did some phone banking to Shelby County voter registration list. It was horrible, because no one had called that list for, I don't know,
God knows how.
who knows how many years. And what you find is a lot of bad phone numbers, people are dead, people have moved. And so the first thing is to try with phone banking is you're just trying to clean up the files, identify who the Democrats are, independents, Republicans. Then, as you go along, and as you're doing this, if you've done phone banking, all this data gets put into the database so that you can later pull this information. Then you start to identify the kind with the persuadables. How can we persuade? What are the issues that are important to these people? So that as we get closer to the election, we can begin to persuade these people. Democrats, we want to find out if they want to volunteer. Do they want to give money? And then the most important thing is you're never, ever, ever going to win an election if people don't vote. So get out the vote and calling people prior to the election on election day. On election day to find out, are you going to vote? When are you going to vote? Oh, good. Do you need a ride? Those kinds of things. So phone banking is so important because it's also going to help the next piece of grassroots campaigning, which is canvassing. And with phone banking, what we've talked with Megan and Kristen about is you have phone banking parties where you're given a list and you have someone's house, wine, either a little bit before, then more after, and you're given a script, and you call. And that's, it can be a lot of fun. So some people don't, will not want to do phone banking, they'll want to do something else, but phone banking can, if you make it fun, it can be a lot of fun. And it really helps campaign. And the next thing is canvassing. And that's where you go door to door. And here again, you're given a list. And if you've got your phone banking and you've got that list done, you've got names of people doors that you're not going to vote on and go to. You're not, or the ones that you know are Democrats or persuadables. And you're given a list, and they call it cutting turf. I don't know if they got that name, but you cut turf. And so it's not like you're going to go to this house here and then you're going to go over here. You have a specific location where you're going to go, and it's very logical how you can go about it. And you try to talk to people. You try to leave information. If they're Democrats, again, you're trying to get them to volunteer. You're trying to tell them more about the campaign and how they can contribute. So, and again, at the end of the day, all of this information goes right into the database. So that at the end, and the canvassing really comes down farther into the campaign, closer to election day kind of thing. Because again, you're trying to get people at the end, get out and vote. A couple of years ago, 2012, my sister and I went down to Pensacola for Obama, and it was really amazing. We were so surprised because they gave us a list, and we had our precinct, and we're going door to door, and we had only about 2 houses that we hit that were totally wrong, but all the rest were right on. And again, you're also asking people, do you need a ride to go voting? Do you know where your voting station is? Exactly, that kind of thing. So that's the canvassing part, which is another thing that we hope we can get this group involved in through Forward Alabama and working with the candidates on this. And then the third is hosting small parties. It's person to small group. And this is where either you have your precinct and you get a list and you invite people, sometimes people you don't know, to your home, and you either have the candidate there or you yourself will talk about the candidate and see. Or it could be just friends that you know, that you want to persuade that this is the candidate that they should be voting for. So these are 3 ways, very simple ways, that Homewood Hive can really help elect Doug Jones, that's the first thing out of the gate, and elect Dana Kline, and elect Felicia Stewart. So if you've got any questions, just let me know. Yeah?
Are you, so are you in any way associated with Organized Alabama and their effort to get the vote number for the entire state?
Bob, you can really talk more about Organized Alabama. And we are looking at, I think the candidates are all going to get their own.
Yeah,
the candidates are.
But Organized Alabama, they're having a summer of voter registration where specifically the 500,000 people of color that are eligible to vote that are not registered, we're trying to get out there and get those people registered, so that's also along.
And all of that's going to help every candidate.
Right, exactly. And so they're also trying to raise $15,000 to get the vote builder data for the entire state, so that we can contact the people that voted for Obama that didn't vote in midterms, for example. So I just didn't know if you guys, I from the outside trying to look at all these groups, I don't feel like everybody's talking to each other. And I feel like there's like
I'm
different
going
people
to
doing
throw
the
that
same
one
thing. And I don't want us all to be doing, I don't know, coordinate.
Well, we want to coordinate with candidates too, because we want to make sure that they get out the vote for them. But Bob?
We have been more specific candidate focused.
Right.
The voter registrations that we have done, I think we're targeted for a certain demographic. Here in Jefferson County, the voter registration and canvassing for the lower income neighborhoods, primarily black neighborhoods, there needs to be coordination with the county party to do that. I don't see a black, I see a couple of people of color, but I don't see a black person in this country. It is.
Why does that make this
Because if, here, just laying it on the line, if a bunch of white middle-class people go into some of these depressed neighborhoods, you are not going to be well received.
Right.
You're just not going to be well received, and you're not going to get anywhere. The black political community is tight-knit. And that's just the way it is. So, we certainly are in favor of every group doing what they're doing. But I think, I personally think that there is room for some groups to coordinate with everybody, but stay in their own focus. So, the voter file for the city of Birmingham that is being used in that campaign costs about $600. So we haven't checked, to my knowledge, we haven't checked it out, but I think that the voter file for House District 46 would probably be $300.
And it doesn't, Vote Builder is one database. There's also Nation Builder. There's several, and one of the things that I know Felicia, I've been talking to her, is to look at which is the best one. There's some aspects to like Nation Builder that has a voter file. So they all have the voter file.
Right.
You know, but what are some of the bells and whistles that others might have?
I don't know anything about the other ones. We used the builder on the also campaign. It was like magic. It just told you exactly what you were gonna meet when you knocked on the door.
This is an aside. Have you been approached about putting people together to go over here and help them?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Yeah,
But you can approach me again. And I'll-
no. I was just curious. I've been approached recently and we're trying to work on something on that.
Yeah.
Get volunteers to go over and help with the Oswald campaign and the
It's
final
really
legislation.
good.
I would just like to make one comment from what Pat said, and that is that if you can imagine the impact that a group like the Homewood Hive can have on a race like Felicia's within this district, it is immense. If you get truly significant. And I would encourage that. You can help Danner, your area, your help is not quite as focused, and then helping Doug too, but again, it's not but it really be effective. Yes.
Let's review the tape.
First of all, to have these parties, is the purpose to
introduce the candidates to your neighbors and to people around, or is it fundraiser driven?
It really depends. I mean, and some of them could be just fundraising. I mean, you know, you've got some people that are Democrat. I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm not a good pupil either.
You said that.
I did.
If you have a group of people that you know, friends that you know are Democrats and they're going to vote for these candidates, perfect opportunity to raise money. But if you're just introducing people, then obviously you're not going to want to ask for money. You're going to want to be more informative and let them know about the candidate if the candidate can't be there.
I would add one thing, and that is that I suspect that your friends know that you are more politically attuned. Maybe you don't share that a lot, but probably your friends probably know that you follow things closely. And I know that before every election, I am always asked by a certain number of people about my thoughts about it and a certain candidate. So it's kind of an offshoot of that, and you can, even if you don't do a party, you can be talking up to people.
The other question that I had was with respect to what Jennifer was asking. Are you aggressively, is the Democratic Party aggressively trying to get those unregistered voters registered? Because
the Democratic Party in the current state is not doing that.
it's not doing it.
There are 67 counties. There are 67 counties in Alabama, and only half of them at best have an active county party. That's the state of the Democratic Party in Alabama. There's a lot of work to be done.
Now, Forward Alabama and Greater Birmingham Democrats, I mean, we're actively trying to get registration. Shelby County Democrats are actively trying to get
Madison?
They're all,
Absolutely.
Trying, and as Bob said, our approach is different, and we're going to, like, Saturday, if you go to Doodah Day, you're going to see our tent up there, and it really is for two things. One is to get people registered, which is wonderful, but two, you meet people. And I know if Doug was talking, he'd find people that comes to the Shelby County, who's a pretty red county, and will say, boy, I didn't think there were Democrats here. And he's gotten so many people that have signed up for the newsletter. We've gotten so many people signing up for our newsletter and are now starting to come to meetings and things like that just through these voter registration efforts.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minutes to answer any other questions you have. I really want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is a great group. We are super excited to see you. We're going to be working with Bob and Pat and the candidates to kind of form some phone banking and work on canvassing, so there will be more information coming out from the H.I.V.E about that. A couple quick things I want to mention. H.I.V.E is now on Twitter. At Homewood H.I.V.E, we have a web page. It's homewoodhive.wordpress.com. We've got a calendar with a lot of progressive groups feeding into that, so you can see a bunch of meetings going on, something every day of the week if you are interested. And then the last thing is we're going to have postcard writing at my house next Tuesday because my husband's out of town. We're going to drink some wine and write some postcards. And I have postcards and I have postage coming out of my eyeballs. That's a story for another day, so if you guys can come, I will put it in an email. Our email list is back there if you just want to stay tuned for what's going on. I think Bob was saying, are you still looking for volunteers for Doodah Day? For voter registration?
We can filter a couple people in, sure. So
Okay.
Talk to me on the way out.
Talk to Bob.
You don't leave either.
Okay, don't leave. Don't leave. The library will kick us out in about 15 minutes.
No, I know. Yeah.
But you got some time. So thank you guys so much for coming out. We're meeting again June 15th, which is a Thursday, with our focus on human rights. Some more information about that coming out as well. You guys rock. Thank you.